Thank you very much for joining RBFF's webinar today, Cast Your Marketing Net Further with Fishbrain. We'll get started in a second, but I just need to go through a few housekeeping items before we begin. Everyone's phone is going to be kept on mute throughout the webinar. If you have a question, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. We'll answer these towards the end of the webinar. A copy of the slides, along with a recording of today's presentation, will be posted to the website following the webinar, and we'll send out an email once this is online. Before exiting the webinar, please take the time to fill out the survey that's going to pop up. The survey is not anonymous, as we'll want to follow up with you if you have any further questions, but it helps us plan future webinars and assess how we can better assist you in your marketing efforts. We really appreciate your feedback on the webinar. So again, thank you for joining. I'm now going to turn it over to Eric, our state marketing coordinator. Sorry about that, Eric.
Thanks so much, Joanne. I really, really appreciate it. Nate, it's so good to see you again. I really appreciate you doing this for us. Let's just start very, very simple, and I know that you have some slides. Tell me a little bit about what Fishbrain is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can introduce myself a little bit as well. So my name is Nate Roman. I'm the partnerships manager here at Fishbrain. I've been at the company for a couple of years now, but I've actually been a Fishbrain member and someone who's used the Fishbrain app for more than 6 years, I think now. So I'm really familiar with like the product overall, but also all the work we're doing across the fishing industry, and especially working with our state partners. So thank you, RBFF, Eric and Joanne, for having me on. You guys are always phenomenal to work with. And yeah, excited to cover some cool content for everyone on the call, whether it's the first time hearing anything about Fishbrain or whether you've already gotten to speak with us or you're already working with us on a few different things. But simply put, Fishbrain is the most popular app in the world and in the United States for people who love fishing. So it's a social network for anglers, but it's also a really powerful tool that anglers use to find fishing spots and plan their fishing trips.
That's awesome. Now you do have some slides. Do you wanna pull those up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start. Let's see if we can get this to go there. Here you can see just a little bit about some of what I just mentioned as far as the features that bring people into the Fishbrain app. So a lot of people might be familiar with the social feed of Fishbrain, or maybe they're just familiar with the Fishbrain map and you've seen snippets of it on the RBFF website or in other areas, or maybe you've heard anglers in your state talking about it. But really, it's a really robust set of features for anglers. So everything from maps that help you find the fishing spot, a community feed that lets you see what people in your area or what your friends are catching, what baits they're using, a personal logbook, so a way for you to keep track of the fish you're catching. For me, I live up in Ohio. I'm primarily a steelhead angler. I know if there are people from the West Coast here, they might call them lake run rainbow trout, but that's what I love fishing for most. So that's what fills up most of my logbook. And then we also are a way for people to check fishing regulations in their state, not in every state yet, but in many of them. And we have some really unique fishing forecasts that help you determine the best time to go fishing for any fish in your area based on all the data that the Fishbrain community has generated and logged in the app. So by the number, I mentioned we're the #1 fishing app in the world. We have more than 15 million people who have signed up for Fishbrain at this point, and most of those are in the United States. It's our biggest market by far. This slide is a little bit older, so that should be 15 million catches, but people are contributing lots of data. They're excited to keep track of their catches and to share and celebrate those with other members of the Fishbrain community. In 2022, Fishbrain was used over 10 million times to check regulations, Fishbrain and the Fish Rules app, which is also part of Fishbrain company. And then, the content shared in Fishbrain generated over 35 million likes and comments. So really an engaged community. You can see some of the states that we already work with or partner with in some way, whether it's a page in Fishbrain, which we'll talk about a lot today, or whether it's collaborating on the regulation side and distributing regulations to anglers. But it really is, it's an active, engaged, nationwide community here. This is a heat map of, I think it was about 200,000 catch logs across the country. And this is, in the summer months, this is only a couple weeks worth of data, and this has been building all the way back since 2013. So if you haven't looked at the map in Fishbrain for your area yet, definitely encourage you to check it out. I think you'll be surprised at just how many people are using it and logging catches in the app. And one thing that we're going to talk about, especially today, is how you can use Fishbrain to reach that sizable audience of anglers, how you can get your messaging to those anglers at the right time. And really the best way to do that, and we'll go into much more detail, is through a state page in Fishbrain. This is, this will let you jump straight into the conversation with that community that's already there. We work with our state partners directly to make sure that they're, happy with all the reach they're getting. We'll actually boost a lot of the content that you post with no extra cost or anything behind it, but we can help you pick out the right angler groups to target, boost that post, promote your page so that everyone using Fishbrain in your state is going to know that your state has a presence there, and they're going to be able to see that content. So shout out to, I used Arkansas. Here's the example slide. They do an amazing job managing their page. Tennessee, Maryland, Connecticut, also with active pages, and some more coming out pretty soon too, it seems like. So really, really a cool product for states. Here you can see some examples, and we'll go into more details. But this is just some examples of how we help promote state content in Fishbrain. So one thing we can do is push notifications. If there's a really important post for your state, or maybe you just want to, let people know about a cool contest. Like in this case, we did a push notification around a contest that FWC was running. Maybe you want to promote license sales around key renewal dates. We can actually trigger those push notifications to send to all the anglers with Fishbrain in your state, and there's no cost for that. So we're really happy to collaborate with states because we believe it helps get the best info out into the hands of those anglers in your state. We can also pin posts in the feed so that anyone who opens the app in your state can get a reminder about, hey, you need to have a fishing license, or hey, it's free fishing weekend, or free fishing weekend is coming up. Whatever it is, we can kind of take that messaging and amplify it. And we won't talk as much today about regulations. Fishbrain is a way that you can distribute your regulations, so anyone looking at the map can actually pull up the regulations in your state and see what the minimum length limit is for this fish or that fish. It's statewide regulations are now active in about 25 states, and we do have site-specific regulations, meaning anyone can see, exactly based on where I am right now, whether I'm in this site-specific lake or whether statewide regs apply. So it's an easy way. It makes regulations easy for anglers to understand and to check. So it's a cool feature, although it won't be the main focus today. We'll be focusing a little bit more on the marketing side. I know, yeah, that's a pretty quick overview. I don't want to spend too much time in slides. I want to make sure we have time to do a lot of a Q&A, but definitely encourage anyone who's curious about anything to ask a question in the chat. And I'm always happy to do a more thorough demo of the app with you or with any other contacts from your state too. So definitely reach out if it's something that you're interested in.
Cool, thank you really, really much, Nate. No, it's actually great because, I wanted to ask what makes Fishbrain more unique than our traditional social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing that's really unique about it is just the fact that everyone using the app is an angler. So they come to Fishbrain because they fish or because they're really interested in becoming an angler, but that's their main focus. That's their intent in the Fishbrain app. So you have kind of some of that targeting done from the very beginning. You know what kind of messaging they're interested in. You know what's going to be appealing to them. So just having that very narrow interest within the app, I think, makes it easy to communicate with that audience. It's also a very positive community. I've heard that from a few different people managing state pages in Fishbrain. We really work to build up that positive, welcoming, open culture within the app. Maybe that's not exactly what you might experience on some other social channels that you have to manage, but it really is that way in Fishbrain, and we work hard to keep it that way. And I would say also what's unique is that there's a lot of other things that bring people back into the app consistently besides just the social aspect, like the utility side of it, being able to use the map and find a new fishing spot or stay up to date with the fishing in your region. That really brings a lot of people back. Like there are people who use the app every day for years and they never actually post anything, which is completely fine. So I think all of those kind of make us a little bit unique as a social network, but it is a place where I think states' messaging, especially around their fisheries, can fit pretty naturally there.
You kind of answered this question, but it's okay to reiterate. How can states actually utilize the platform to their benefit, really?
Yeah, I would say like launching a state page in Fishbrain is the easiest way to do that. So that actually gives you a presence in the app where you can share updates. So you can think of it like a social page, like your Facebook page, or anything like that. But I know even just saying that probably triggers some people on this call and makes you think it's a ton of work to manage, and it's going to be a bandwidth issue, and things like that. But I really suggest to people when they get started, it's pretty simple to run a page in Fishbrain, and because we'll be supporting you directly, so we'll help amplify your message, we'll help tell people about your page, we'll make sure everyone sees the most important stuff. Even if you're only sharing one update a month, or just even once a quarter, just posting something that you want to make sure everyone in your state sees, and then asking us to amplify it. That's a great way to kind of dip your toes in and just make sure you are reaching that audience in Fishbrain. It's not something that you have to grow. It's something that will grow for you, and we already have this active audience, so it's really just a matter of being there and meeting the anglers in your state where they already are.
And Nate, this is a free service, correct?
Yeah, so no costs or contracts needed to launch a page within Fishbrain. If we need to sign any MOUs or anything for you, we're happy to, but we don't require anything from the states on that side. We just, we really believe that the best info, best local info, important info from a conservation perspective comes from the states. And we want to make sure that we're getting that in front of our community, because long term, that's good for us, for the industry as a whole. So definitely, just want to make sure that states feel welcome to join that conversation and participate.
What's the benefit of a state taking advantage of Fishbrain?
Yeah, I think one, you have, I'm sure you have, you've got your email lists, you have your presence in Facebook and other social channels too. But I think there are a lot of benefits in being able to reach some new groups of anglers that you haven't been able to reach or aren't able to reach as easily. So some of those might be younger anglers. These are, the licensed purchasers of the future. And throughout the course of Fishbrain, we have had, millions of people download the app, ages 15, 16, 17. I know it's different in every state, but these are the licensed purchasers of the future. And if you can really, meet them as they first start exploring fishing in Fishbrain or whatever it might be, that's a great way to kind of, build a customer who's going to be a licensed purchaser who's going to be with you for a long time. We also know that a lot of people will come to Fishbrain right after moving to a new area. That's a push that often causes people to start Googling fishing spots near me, or there's this lake by my house and I just need to see what people are catching there. A lot of times when they do that, they'll end up on the Fishbrain website, they'll download the app, and then they'll start exploring in Fishbrain. So they might be from out of state, and I think that's a great time to get your state agency's messaging in front of them, maybe a timely push notification about a license, or anything like that. So I think that's another really effective reason to join. There's also the avid anglers, so people who you just want to be informed about your programming that's going on, whether it's a contest, an initiative, anything like that. Just another touch point with some of those avid anglers that can be really, really consistent and active.
Let me ask you a question. You were at our state marketing workshop earlier this year. I think it was the first time you came. So now you kind of understand a little bit about R3. And one of the questions, is how can Fishbrain help states with retention?
Yeah, that's something that we're definitely, there's the recruitment angle, which I talked about a little bit, people new to the state or younger anglers who are going to be your future licensed purchasers. But then on the retention side, I think there's an element of getting people who are casual anglers or occasional anglers to really see themselves as anglers and to turn into those avid, lifelong, me, I'm going to buy a fishing license in Ohio every year for the rest of my life. That's just, that's who I am, and that's a part of me at this point. And Fishbrain played a role in getting me there. So I've seen that personally from just being a Fishbrain member, I think, and I think that can play out really at scale in your state. We know from people who first start downloading the app, it's generally about 40% who consider themselves avid anglers, but after they've been around and logged some catches and really participated, that percentage who consider themselves avid starts going up quite a bit. And then, those anglers ideally are easier for you to retain long term. So I think it is about helping people be successful, for sure. Get out there in the water, understand what's around them, make sure they're seeing, the regulations info, all the info they need about their local fisheries to feel well prepared, feel successful. They're seeing themselves as an angler, they're getting interaction with other anglers in their community, and it's helping kind of move them towards considering themselves like that avid angler, that lifelong license purchaser.
Let's get into the kind of the account itself. Let's just say I'm state X. Can you all kind of walk me through how that works? Like how would I work with you in establishing that account?
Yeah, so it's super easy to set up. We try to make it as easy as possible. Generally, the process is, you would just tell me that you want a page in Fishbrain. I would set it up for you. We would do a 1-hour training session. And I think me and you actually did this training session, I think, when you were at Maryland. So it's not too painful. But then we're able to just launch the page for you. We usually do like kind of a soft launch where you get to like post a little bit, but we're not like boosting you too much, just so you get familiar with it. And then once you're ready to go, we can start really promoting the page actively and getting more anglers to see everything you post. And from there, it's just working with each other one-on-one as we keep going. So it's just like, as something important comes up in your state, we do this all the time with like Cody and Lauren and Arkansas. They'll just reach out and say like, hey, this is what's important for us. We have a tag trout contest this month, or free fishing days this month. Can you just make sure that this gets as much reach as possible? And then, I kind of take the lead on boosting that and making sure that we run some campaigns around it. So it doesn't require a lot of heavy lifting on the state side at all to get started or to manage the page. And we're always right there to answer any questions you have too.
Let me dig a little into that a little bit. So can you tell me, like for example, how many users can I have on an account?
As far as like admins or people managing the page?
Yeah.
I don't think there's actually an upper limit on that. We definitely have had accounts where at least 10 people have been connected to the page with the ability to post. My only advice on that would be to make sure that you know exactly who's posting what and when, so you don't end up double posting or sharing anything like that. But easy to have multiple admins on an account, and there's other tools that make managing the page pretty easily too, like being able to schedule a post in the future. So even if the regulations for this species are changing on this day, and we want to make sure that we get the news out on that day, you can actually schedule that for the future pretty easily as well.
What about moderation?
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as moderation, we work really hard to kind of auto-moderate ourselves to make sure that everything shared in Fishbrain is positive and appropriate for the community. So there's some automatic moderation that happens. There's community moderation that happens too, like people being able to report things that are offensive or shouldn't be in Fishbrain or anything like that. Then our support team is quick to act on things like that. States have the ability, page managers have the ability to remove comments if they need to. And I know there are different requirements state by state on whether you're able to do something like that. But it's a feature that's there as far as moderating comments. You can also reply to comments. And there are ways, if managing the number of comments you get is something that you're interested in, there are ways that you can post within Fishbrain without getting comments or enabling them, basically. So that would be working with me to say like, hey, this is an important thing we want everyone to see. And then I could actually take that post and just pin it in the feed for everyone to see. So everyone who opens the app, opens the social feed, would see the post, but there wouldn't be a commenting feature on that post specifically. So a few different ways. Hopefully that covers everything, but definitely feel free to comment if there's a specific question from anyone on it too.
Can I, excuse me, can I like target specific anglers and species, like for example, striped bass or brook trout or something of that nature?
Yeah, so within Fishbrain, we don't collect demographic info when someone creates an account, but what we do have the ability to target around is really, their fishing activities. So what fishing waters do you pay attention to? What fish species have you caught or are you interested in catching? we learn a lot about the way someone likes to fish, or is this an inshore angler? Is this a saltwater specific angler? Whatever it might be, we can target around a lot of those characteristics and make sure that message reaches the right people. So for example, the state of Connecticut recently stocked catfish, or actually they were collecting feedback about whether they should begin stocking catfish in one community pond. So we just sent a push notification to everyone within a 25-mile radius of that pond. So a smaller group of anglers that way, to just say like, hey, Connecticut would like your feedback on this issue. So very easy to target based on region or fishing habits within Fishbrain.
Walk me through a little bit about how push notifications work.
So it's not something that's on the states or anyone managing a page to set up or implement themselves. Really, it's as simple as, hey, this is what we want to get out. Like maybe you already shared the post, or maybe you're planning to, and then you would just message me and say, hey, this is who we want to reach with it. And then I would make sure we have that audience set up correctly for the notification, be able to share it. And we're able to share analytics with you after the fact of like, hey, we sent that push notification to 150,000 people. Here's how many clicked on it, whatever it might be. So I think positive from both like an awareness standpoint, seeing how many got the word, and then also like an engagement standpoint, seeing how many clicked over to your site. And I think that's an important thing to mention too, like no issues at all on our end with linking to something on your site. So you can share links to your own site, to your licensing site, anything you want is fair game from your page. And same thing for any of the campaigns we help launch that way too.
Let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about regulations. And I know that some folks might be a little apprehensive about providing information or data to Fishbrain. And explain to me, number one, I guess, how that data is used, and if possible, can states use that data to their advantage?
So I guess starting with the data thing, you don't need to provide any information about your customers, or we're not looking for email addresses or anything like that from you at all. So nothing, you don't have to provide any personal information about people in your state. When it comes to regulations, with regulations, we're always actively working to add more states that have that support or that have regulations available in Fishbrain, because it is like, you get used to using the app in Ohio or Florida, in a state where we are able to show you regulations, and then maybe you're traveling. We want to make sure that you still have that same app experience as a user as you're moving about the country, because Fishbrain works in all 50 states, and that's a really cool selling point for it, I think. So we're trying to roll regulations out in more and more states, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible. So when it comes to adding statewide regulations, that doesn't take any work at all from the state, but we are actively working to add those. We will always try to work with the state to get someone in your state to review the regulations, make sure that we're just covering the information in the exact way that you would prefer, that we're putting all links to your site to the page that you would prefer us to link to. We're always going to link to your full reg book, but if there's any other links that you want included in there too, whether it's like an angler recognition program or anything like that, that's why we want review from the states as much as possible, just so you can help us say like, oh, like, yes, this looks good, but can you add our link to the angler recognition program here? That's always good to add, and then so that we have that touch point in case there are any seasonal changes outside of the main reg book changes or anything like that, so that we can make those updates. When it comes to like statewide, or sorry,
oh no,
yeah.
Go ahead.
When it comes to site-specific regulations, more collaboration can be helpful there, especially if your GIS team already has polygons for a lot of the regulated lakes or the lakes, rivers, areas that have special regulations. So that's something that we try to work pretty actively, especially if the state can provide any like shape files for us that work well for the regulations. That is super helpful as a collaboration piece.
So are these regulations live? I know that oftentimes, depending on the species, depending on where you live, et cetera, regulations can change in some cases day by day. Are your regulations live, and how does that work?
So yeah, we work to make sure they're as up to date as possible. So we pay attention to any changes in the reg books that come out or any notifications, like press releases from the states around those. If you notice anything that is out of date, you can always reach out to me or to Aubrey Arrington or Ryan Hearn from the Fishbrain team. We'll make sure everyone has all these email addresses and we'll update them as quick as possible. We do also, in some cases, we have some partnerships with states where the states actually manage the regulations themselves in Fishbrain. So Florida, FWC, a great example of that, but Hawaii, South Carolina, a few others throughout the US too. They actually have a login into our back end, and because regulations can change pretty frequently, they can push those regulations out as soon as they update them on other places on their site too. So that one, that takes a little bit more setup for sure, but if it's something that you're interested in, definitely something that we can look into getting you that same kind of access to.
One other question I wanted to ask before we open it to questions is anything new that's coming on the horizon at Fishbrain and that you can share?
Yeah, there's always new stuff happening for us, especially from like a product perspective. So definitely, if you haven't checked out the app in a couple years or anything like that, I would encourage you to give it a look for sure. You can also reach out and I'll make sure you have access to all the pro features so you can see like as much data as possible about your state. So always happy to help there. But then as far as new things, a big focus for our company right now is data quality. So when we have 15 million catches that have been logged by anglers, whenever you're talking about millions of crowdsourced user-generated data points, there are always going to be some inaccuracies within that, a little bit inevitable. But we're really focusing right now on going back through that historical data, both on catches and locations, and moderating it, optimizing it, just making sure it's as accurate as possible. Just so that when you check out the Fishbrain map, even if you're looking at an old catch or some older info there, it's going to be accurate there. So that's a big focus for us, and then there'll be lots of new features that come out as well. Not too much that I'll cover on this call, but yeah, if you have suggestions too or anything that you think anglers in your state would really value, that's always fair game to shoot us a note as well.
Well, I know this has been a very, very quick introduction to Fishbrain, and I super appreciate it. One of the important things is I would love to be able to open this up to questions for those who are attending today. I'd like to see if there are any questions from folks.
Yeah, we have a few already. The first question is, how often should state agencies post to engage their audiences?
That's a really good question, and I would say a lot of it depends on your state's bandwidth. So I know I shouted out Arkansas a couple times. Tennessee, David at Tennessee does an amazing job posting too. So both of those states post very actively, like at least a couple times a week. Cody, I know, does a great job. Cody Crank at Arkansas. I'm not sure if you're on the call, Cody, but he does a great job like posting their fishing report every week and usually smaller updates throughout the week too. And those all generate engagement. So that's a great cadence if you want to like maximize that organic engagement. But if you want to kind of just focus on the bigger updates, maybe you don't have as much bandwidth, especially while you're first starting out here, even just posting once a month, I think is a great goal to have, especially as you're kind of focusing on like, this is our biggest update for the month. This is what is most important for everyone at Fishbrain to know about this month. And then we can work on that on my end mostly to just amplify it and make sure it reaches as many people as possible. So great question, Nicole.
Great. The next question is, what do most states post about? Is it about regulations, upcoming meetings, or hot button issues, or just a mix of all fishing topics?
I would say it's a mix of all fishing topics, like fishing reports. Those are always, if your state does fishing reports or anything like that, or interesting catches, like that's kind of what people are used to seeing in the feed within Fishbrain. Like that's most of the organic user-generated content is people logging catches. So it's people holding fish, and that's always helpful to log in Fishbrain, or for a state to post in Fishbrain and just say like, here's this awesome snook. so-and-so caught here. Like if you want to learn more about snook fishing opportunities or catch a Florida memory or whatever it might be that you're trying to promote, that's a great way to kind of like segue into it, is like share a fishing related image. But really, it's a little bit of everything. So like fish stocking is a great thing to post about. Contests, engagement initiatives, free fishing days, license renewal dates. So a lot of states I know are on like a rolling 365, but if you still have key license renewal dates, those are always great to post about as well. Or just general info that maybe, maybe some people are, avid anglers, longtime anglers in your state might be super familiar with. Sometimes it's worthwhile just to share a post about like, hey, like this is what the angler recognition program looks like in Indiana or in Tennessee or Ohio or wherever it is. Like if you haven't tried logging a catch, or if you haven't participated in this before, here's how you do it. Here's how you learn more about it. So some of those like almost evergreen posts are great to share, and then we can actually find the right time to link to those posts throughout someone's app experience too. Like we could, let's say someone logs a 20-inch bass in the state of Ohio that qualifies for our master angler program. So we could actually give them a message in the app that points them to your old post about the angler recognition program and encourages them to participate in it. So I know that's a little bit of like, hey, just about everything works. But most things that are fishing related will play well in Fishbrain.
I was going to ask on that same question, what have you seen to be the most successful post in your opinion?
Fishing reports do really well. I think just having that, like, hey, here's an interesting catch that someone has, and now check out all this other info that our state has compiled together. The fishing reports do really well. So if your state has a fishing report that you compile, or maybe it's just general like fishing tips in the state, that stuff does really well. People are always looking to learn and keep up to date with things.
And a very simple thing to share as well.
For sure.
All right, the next question is, what's the Fishbrain user experience for first-time anglers? Have you surveyed any first-time anglers to learn more about their experience?
Yeah, so we constantly talk to people who download the Fishbrain app. That's something I'm involved with and our product team is involved with too. So we are, constantly meeting with people or calling them on the phone and just trying to figure out like, hey, how long have you been fishing for? Why did you download the Fishbrain app? What pain points have you run into? Have we helped you catch any fish yet? Like those are the questions that help us keep growing as a company. And we're always identifying areas where we can keep adding to it. So as a first-time user, right now, like let's say you've never fished before, there's kind of a tutorial walkthrough experience of how to use the app, what the map shows you. I think we still can add a lot more of like general fishing how-to and knowledge. And if your state has resources like that, we could link to those throughout our onboarding program for anyone who says they are a beginner or anything like that. And as far as general numbers, last time I think we surveyed and asked people like, hey, avid, casual, or beginner. They had to kind of classify in one of those buckets. I believe it was right around 10 to 15% put themselves in that beginner category. So those are people who might not have a fishing license yet. So I think it's a great audience for someone to reach. And although it's not the biggest segment within Fishbrain, we have a lot more avid or casual anglers scaled up over the course of Fishbrain. Like we're talking about millions of people who have come in as a beginner. So it's something that we want to keep improving the experience for, other than just keep teaching them how to use the app, also teaching them like how to go fishing, how to be successful in their state, how to make sure they have a license. So it's something we're paying attention to for sure. And we're happy to kind of think through that with you. If you're like, hey, here's where I point everyone in our, here's the resource we give everyone in our Angler 101 class or whatever it might be. We can direct new beginner anglers towards that resource as well.
You may have just answered this, and I'm just kind of curious now. Let's just say I haven't fished before, but I downloaded the Fishbrain app and I don't have a license yet. Can you, per location, can you direct me of where I can get my license?
Yeah, so right now we have anyone exploring the map, they'll actually, they can open it up and there's a link to the RBFF licensing page. So like, the one that directs you to choose your state get a license that way. So that's an easy one to be able to link to. But I think we could also do some more dynamic like pop-ups, direct you to a specific post from that state agency, whatever it might be, and just encourage people to get that license as much as possible too. So yeah, we're kind of like, if there's something that you want us to try, I'm happy to test it out and try to put it together on our end there.
Someone just asked a good question, Nicole again, and I don't know the answer. Can you post videos?
Yes, you can post videos within Fishbrain. I think it's up to 6 minutes. If you're trying to share anything longer than that, though, you can also post YouTube links and they'll play right in the app, which is probably easier just because you don't have the file, you don't have to have the original file or anything like that. So yeah, posting YouTube links or posting video files perfectly both work well in Fishbrain.
Is it free to the end user, or is there an upgrade fee?
That's a great question. I probably should have hit that in the overview. Fishbrain is free to download and to use. There is a pro version of Fishbrain, so it's a monthly or an annual subscription, and that's our main source of revenue. The way it breaks down feature-wise, like let's say someone wants to use the free version of Fishbrain, they'll have access to the social feed. They'll be able to log catches into their logbooks. They'll be able to see what other people are posting. They can follow your stake page. They can follow other anglers. They'll be able to use a more limited version of the map too. So it won't have quite as much data as far as being able to, see all the old catches going back to 2013, or be able to turn on some of the advanced map layers. Like we have, like a Garmin Navionics, like depth charts, map layer. And some other, fishing forecasts and more advanced tools that are part of the pro subscription. But people can and they do use the free version of Fishbrain, so no one would be required to pay. And the other part that's free too is being able to see the fishing regulations, obviously too. So yes, great question.
Can Fishbrain help states promote fishing events to local anglers? And if so, how does this work?
Yeah, I mean, one way to do it is just posting to the page, and that would kind of go to everyone following your page. But the other way to do it would be just reaching out to me or to anyone at Fishbrain and saying, like, here's the event, here's who we think would find it relevant. Like if it's a fishing 101, maybe you want to tell everyone to try to like bring a friend to it. But if it's like a specific, catfish stocking date in a local lake, maybe you just want to tell people who have fished in that lake before, or have fished near that lake, or who have logged catfish in Fishbrain before, whatever it might be. All we would need to know is who you think would be relevant, and then we could build up the audience for a campaign there. So like a push notification sent just to those people who you think would be most interested in the event.
So some really good questions.
Yeah. There's another event related question. Obviously you can promote that there are events out there, as you just mentioned, but is there a way you can kind of host fishing challenges or events within the app? You could keep track of who's participating, and they could log their catches for that event.
That's a great question. Not yet, really. We've done some versions of it and are still trying to think about whether it might be something we add to Fishbrain in the future. There are ways to do like little contests or challenges, like say, hey, like log a catch in Fishbrain with the hashtag, state challenge X or whatever it is. There could be a prize for the winner, or however you wanted to arrange it or set up the contest. So that's like a very simple version. We don't have like a fully robust like event hosting tool yet, but who knows? We're always trying.
So you're more talking about kind of the tournament aspect of it, I'm assuming, and so that's not something that you have in place yet.
No. Or events in general. It'd be more about getting the word out about the events for now than actually hosting them within Fishbrain. Anglers can organize, like communities can organize in Fishbrain. Like we do have groups in Fishbrain. So people will create a group around their favorite river, and people will join that group if they think it's relevant. not quite the same as an event, but there are like smaller communities that develop through those groups.
Do you have any general do's and don'ts for states when posting?
I would say one do that works really well is actually including a fish species in your catch. So if it's a fish image, like if it's a fishing report and the cover image for it is a trout, you can actually tag that fish and include the species, and that just helps get it more organic reach because it gives us more to target around. Like we know that post is probably extra appealing to someone who goes fishing for trout a lot, and we can get it higher up in their feed organically because of that. So the more info you actually tag when you're sharing that post, the better. You can also tag fishing waters within Fishbrain, and then people who follow that water or fished at that water before, it'll rank a little bit higher in their algorithm too, and kind of bubble to the top more naturally. So in tagging that extra info, species species and location helps amplify the reach a little bit. And I'm always happy to show states exactly how to do that when we do our training call too. As far as don'ts, I'd say just like a lot of social networks, like text only posts don't get as much reach or as much engagement as something with an image or a video. It just doesn't, and it's not any different on Fishbrain than on Facebook there. So yeah, a lot of the same do's and don'ts that you would use on Facebook still apply in Fishbrain too.
The do is definitely utilize Fishbrain.
Yeah.
There aren't any more questions, but I was wondering, can you share maybe in the chat feature your email address for anyone who might want to contact you after this?
Yes, definitely. I'll type it in now. And we really are always open to conversations. So if there's anything that you have feedback for around the app, around a feature you'd like to see, if you think there's a unique blocker in your state for any reason, I know every state has a different requirements, different things that have to fall into line, whatever it might be. We're always happy to try to see if we can help in any way. So whatever it is, good, bad, feedback for the app, if you have any questions, anything like that, you can always just reach out, and I'm happy to provide as much info as we possibly can. We really love working with the states too, so definitely shout out to anyone I mentioned on the call already, or if I forgot to mention you. Met a lot of awesome people through the work that we've got to do with the states of Fishbrain already, and really excited to keep growing on it from here.
Great, thank you. We did actually just have one more question come in. Do you recommend states partner with influencers who have a high following on Fishbrain?
You definitely can, and there's actually a way to add ambassadors to your page if you want. So that would be they don't have full admin privileges of your page. They can't change the links or the profile or post as your page, but they can post to your page. So it would show up as them posting this to your page rather than you posting it. You definitely can do it that way, or even encouraging them to tag the page or talk about it within their own feed can work well. We really do try to you wouldn't necessarily need to do that though, I would say, just because we will grow your page for you. I think all the states will be able to say yes, we've had the page growing consistently since we launched it, even if we didn't post a month, just because Fishbrain's going to promote you at the right time, especially to new people who create an account in the state, for sure. And there's also ways and just as a shout out as far as growing the page, we started testing some different things with states. For Tennessee, we sent them some cards with a little Fishbrain QR on it, QR code, and they actually include these in their takeaway materials from an Angler 101 class. Someone who is probably new to fishing, doesn't really know where to go, and when they get back to their house or their apartment, they're not really sure where they can go near them. So Fishbrain's a great resource for them. They're able to scan the QR, download the app, and then they actually automatically follow the Tennessee page as well, just so that that touch point is already established with them. So we're open to testing things. If you have ideas, we are open to them.
Let me ask you a really simple question. You mentioned ambassadors, and for folks who may not know, can you just define what an ambassador is for Fishbrain?
So an ambassador would be like an influencer or an individual angler who you could connect, who you trust, and you want them to be able to kind of like not post on your behalf, but be able to post to your page. So kind of like a partner influencer within that.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, Nate, I super appreciate you joining us today. It's always good to talk to you. And I think that this has been very informative for state agencies to learn about Fishbrain and to learn more about how they can use it for their communications and marketing. And so again, I thank you very much for joining us, and for all of you for taking your time this afternoon or morning for hopping on the call.
Great, thank you both, Eric and Nate. Excuse me, we really appreciate all your work on this. As you leave the webinar, please take the survey that'll pop up. We really appreciate your feedback. But thank you again, Nate and Eric.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Been great working with you guys. I'm really excited to keep in touch and keep conversations moving.